So we're gonna take you out of leg lifts. I like how you close off and you do fall well, right? You're sitting well. When you closed off like that, you actually you counter rotated your hips. You're even saying instantly rotated here. So everything looks not bad. I'd say you could get a little lower as your legs get stronger, because you look like you're a little early to instantly rotate. Like that's starting to lay down or collapse down a little early. You don't really want that coming down like this until this is ready to open. You can see it's happening right here, and that leg's still trying to get out. So you might be because you can't load down enough, you might be driving early due to lack of power. So there might be just some early transfer of energy. You open, you time your opening well right before you land. You don't fly open with your front leg, but you do pull a little bit too much with your glove. Right? So ideally, if we're gonna stay that passive and quiet with the front leg, I don't want to be pinching and pulling that elbow that far behind my back too early, because then that's going to pull my trunk open early. So if we look at like your kinematic sequence, this is how the speeds are going off. You can see the red here is your hip, just like the avatar. The green is your trunk. You can see the first thing to go is the light blue line. That's your glove. So your glove is starting to amplify the energy first. And that's what we're seeing right here as it goes behind your back. So your glove's trying to trigger the energy. We don't want the glove to do that. The glove is just something that helps keep us in line. It helps stabilize with our front side. You're using it to pull and generate. Studies show pitchers that have more left to right movements with the glove, or more low velocity pitchers, show you're using that glove to help this hip. As you can see right here, when you're open, not a lot of power pushing through that hip. You can even see, like this is speed. So a hard V would be a lot of speed. You see kind of like it comes up and then it starts to slow down and flatten out a little bit. And you get this big little mound here, right? At this point right here is when it started to kind of go more sideways a long time. Up would be faster, right? So it actually started to slow down. And that's right when you were ready to drive. It's supposed to actually be peaking, but right here it started to slow down. And that's why pulling your glove behind your head, your back here, is at that point means it's trying to help out your hips. There's some lack of power here to drive the hip into rotation, so your glove kicks in at the point almost close to peaking, at the point that your hips start to slow down. And then you land, and then what happens is, when you're ready to rotate and your hip isn't driving it and your glove's driving it, then it typically pulls both of them together. So you get the hips and shoulders together, and now we see them peaking together. So we both have them at the same peak. And then what the arm will do is the arm will try to delay, because you need some delay to let the energy to get to the ball. But the problem is when the arm delay like that, it puts a lot of stress on the front of the shoulder, a lot of stress on the elbow. So then we start having arm issues, right? So, and even if we're not having arm issues, we know if we push this to say 85, 90 miles an hour, then we start having arm issues. So, but the problem was here, you did good to this point. You started driving early. You obviously didn't have enough power here to let the hips create the peaks. So you pulled the glove to help out, to help pull this hip around, wind up pulling everything together, so you get no hip to shoulder separation. You get a lot of arm drag, and then you don't get a good finish out of it. You get your trunk pointing this way, your arm pushing late that way, right? And you're probably even, it looked like it lost your arm here, but you might be getting slightly around the ball. Your vertical, like you had really good spin over here, but not good vertical lift. And we know pronation speeds has a direct correlation to vertical lift. This should be around 2100. That should be like at least 17, 19 to 21. So it could be because you were dragging your arm here, you're delaying pronation. So you're delaying pronation speeds, and now you don't have good vertical lift, even though you had some good spin. on the ball. So it really goes back to everything looked good in the beginning, just ran out of power to really drive the hips open and separate the hips. Because at front foot strike right here, high velocity pitchers have a more open hip position. You can see a front foot, your hips are very closed. There's not enough force here pulling this around, so you're trying to use your glove, and then that causes them to sync up, and then you started dragging your arm, and then you didn't really get a good finish. So it was a good beginning, not a good finish. Usually I see it the other way around. Guys have good finishes, poor beginnings, and then the finishes aren't dynamic or hard enough. So you have a good beginning to have a good finish. You just run out of the power, it looks like, so you start overcompensating.
And that's why sometimes his foot just stops there, right?
What foot? The landing foot?
No, the back foot, instead of coming up and around like, see.
Oh yeah, because the point. So the landing leg, right? The landing leg is just it's the propeller, then it's the counterbalance of the trunk. So when you land, it's there to counterbalance your trunk. So it's going under you because your hips were late to rotate. If my hips are late to rotate, then and these come together, then they just suck up. If my hips are early to rotate and this is still back, then as my trunk comes through, it stays there, and then it'll come up to counterbalance my trunk going forward, right? So that'll change as your hip power increases.
All right.
Your hip power increases, your back leg will start to look different. The back leg isn't going to help do that though. The back leg is going to propel it and then react to it. Okay.
All right.
That's it. I think it's with you. I think you have a good sense of movement. You're just lacking athleticism. It's like if we look at